Les Miles out as LSU's head coach. Mark Rogers TV talking to Jamie Hancock of Preps Nation to get his perspective. Jamie covers the SEC, Auburn in particular. Jamie, always interested to get your perspective on these situations because it's easy to say, hey, we're not winning national titles. Get them out of here. That's the fans' knee-jerk reaction. But there's a lot that goes into these situations involving money and boosters and keeping people happy and who else is out there to consider to bring in. So your thoughts about the Les Miles dismissal and should he have been fired?
I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of money involved in athletics at a high level. In a place like LSU, there's a ton of money involved. I look at situations like this and I understand that the fan base is rabid and they want that national title. And that's one thing that makes it great to be LSU and an LSU Tiger. That passion is great. But I think it works as a negative in a situation like this. Don't get me wrong. I think Les Miles is a boring individual. I think that he's bullheaded, and I think that he has refused to change to a certain degree. However, when I see your program, which is always really close, and you can blame that on him. He's at the head of the program. But this gentleman was the all-time winningest coach percentage-wise at this school, and not in 2 or 3 years. This is a long-term thing. You've won 77% of your football games in possibly the toughest division of the toughest conference in college football. It's something that they've consistently been a winner. They have not consistently been in the national title picture in the last week or two, but they've consistently been in the national title picture for the majority of a lot of seasons. Les Miles, money, he's responsible for the program. But I look at it like, he's done a good job. Has he done a great job? Maybe not. But be careful what you wish for in situations like this. I think you had a coach who does care about the community. He's done a lot of things for that community and for people that are not in that community, specifically a young person from Birmingham, Alabama, who has terminal cancer, and he brought them down to LSU. And so things like that mean something. You're teaching young men to be young men. And so there are 120 players on that football team that I feel like were probably not considered in this situation. Firing him, maybe they're not believe that, but there are 120 football players who I don't think their voice could be heard in this. And at the very least, I don't think that you do it during the middle of the season. The NCAA needs to take a serious look at how they do things. If these young players, these young athletes that are in good academic standing cannot transfer because somebody decides to let their coach go in the middle of the season, but they have to sit out a year. Things like that bother me when it's so easy to say, well, we'll just pay him off. I've got a huge booster here who's worth $1 billion, and he'll pay off this contract because he can't stand him. And these young guys are sitting there looking at each other. What do we do?
Yeah, so to further on that point, Jamie, beyond the wins and the losses and the championships and the recruiting rankings, you have people involved and you have kids who are at a very pivotal point in their lives that depend on leadership. And I'm going to liken this situation to a certain extent to the Georgia situation with Mark Richt. And this is no knock against Kirby Smart, but Mark Richt brought more to that Georgia football program than winning 10 football games a year. There was a level of class and dignity that he brought in professionalism and care to the kids involved. And that's lost if you let an individual with that kind of character and integrity go. I don't know as much about what Les Miles has done compared to Mark Richt, but it sounds as though they're cut from the same cloth in that regard.
I think so. And again, I think Miles is not the personal, engaging person that a lot of people would like. I think he is a bit boring, somewhat like Phil Fulmer at Tennessee, who was considered a boring, bland guy, but all he did was create stability for that program for a lot of years. And Tennessee spent a lot of time trying to get it right after making that decision. And I think I'm glad Georgia let Mark Richt go, because I think Kirby Smart's going to do a good job. But what I saw was a Miami program that was crumbling to the ground. And I mean, not just on the field, off the field, in every sense of the word. And so Georgia did a massive favor to the city of Miami, to South Florida, and probably the country, because Mark Richt is going to bring what the program at the University of Miami lacked. And it's going to be integrity and being able to answer for the things that you do each and every day, because that's the type of human that he is. So I think Georgia, because I think they're going to be okay. I think Kirby Smart's going to do a good job. But I thank them for bringing the University of Miami back, because that's what they did. That's Mark Richt is going to be, he was the perfect. I don't believe that you hire Nick Saban at Miami over Mark Richt for what they needed. They needed that loving hand to bring that program back, where those kids began to buy in to what they were doing as a university, not as individuals. So in the LSU situation, I think Ed Orgeron is going to actually rally the troops. He's a player's coach. He's a nut, and that's what they need in that sense. And he's going to have them so fired up, they're going to run through a brick wall. I would not want to have to deal with them in the next couple of weeks, because he's a nut job, and he's good at what he does. And those kids, he's going to have them going. And be careful, LSU, if you are not interested in keeping Ed Orgeron, you may have made a mistake, because this team could do very well under him, and you're going to be faced with that question of what do we do? And so although I don't agree with letting a coach go in the middle of the season unless he has done something personally to deserve that, I do think that they may get a shot in the arm, and we'll see where this goes. But I personally don't care a lot for it, because it's more about people and money than it is about the young men. And, everybody talks about the winning percentage today, and I'm going to ask a question that I don't know the answer to. I haven't looked at it. What's their graduation rate? What is their success rate with keeping their players out of trouble with their local law enforcement agencies? Nobody's mentioned that one bit, yet we're talking about what is supposed to be an amateur sport. I agree that production is needed, wins are needed, but in the middle of the season, in the middle of the night, after game 4, that sounds like somebody already knew what they wanted to do, and they just needed an opportunity.
Yeah, getting back to Orgeron, he failed miserably on the field at Ole Miss. Then he got a second chance to a certain extent at USC, because as soon as you made the comments about those kids running with like with their hair on fire through a brick wall for Ed Orgeron, that's what they did at USC. If you look at the situation there, that program was in disarray. They needed leadership. They needed some fight. It was one of those situations where you see a lot of football teams give up and mail it in for the rest of the year. He jumped in there against a very difficult schedule the last 8 games and went 6-2 in 2013, and has made comments that he learned a lot from his stay at Ole Miss and having a big-time coaching job for the first time. And he might be not the name that LSU fans want, but he might turn out to be the right guy.
No doubt. I know he's a defensive-minded guy. That is their background. I know people there want to see a high-flying offense. You can't typically have them both. But I do think he may do quite well there. I really do. And we'll find out, how that goes. If he does do well, I would certainly hate to see him, if he were to go finish out 6-2, 7, whatever, how many games they have left. I would hate to see him, take a back seat again, just because somebody has something in mind. But we'll see, how it goes. I don't agree with it. I think that, interesting.
Jamie, you and I were running down memory lane before we hit the record button. And something that I don't know that a lot of young fans realize is that LSU has not always been LSU. They have not always recruited with Alabama and Florida State and Ohio State in the top 5 year after year after year after year, anticipating finishing in the national championship race. This was a 500 team basically for the better part of 20-25 years. If you look prior to Nick Saban coming in and establishing the program that it is now, this was a mid-level SEC program, and you made the comment as we were discussing, you got to be prepared for what you're wishing for. You let a guy go who's a proven winner, maybe not delivering on the championships that you would like, but winning 9 and 10 games a year, and you oust him, maybe the replacement's not going to be able to lift it up, i.e. Tennessee.
Hey, as long as that man still sits in that office in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, parks in that first parking spot right there on the sidewalk. And when you walk up, you know that that's his car. And the coach that you're walking in says, yep, coach is here. As long as that man decides he's going to be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, you're going to have a hard time being a consistent national championship winner in the SEC West. And I'm curious to know how many titles LSU might have if that gentleman had stayed with the Miami Dolphins. And so, there was LSU pre-Saban, and now there's LSU having to play against Saban. So unless you're bringing in Urban Meyer or another one or two people who have proven that they can go head to head with the best, and that gentleman in Tuscaloosa is the best. That's not to say Tom Herman or somebody like that can't do it, but I'm saying in my lifetime, because I didn't get to see Bear Bryant and things of that nature, and I didn't see Leahy, and I didn't see some of the guys before. The gentleman that works 3 hours for me is the best that there's ever been in college football to this point during my lifetime. And as long as he's in Tuscaloosa, it's going to be very difficult for any other program to consistently be there in that playoff.
So the bottom line for me, to summarize my viewpoint on this one, should he have been fired? If you look at the pro Les Miles camp, the pros are many. Great winning percentage, 114-34, won a national title, lost another national championship game, always in the national championship hunt, recruits top 5 recruiting classes, has won consistently. The cons are that he's being paid to win championships, meaning that if you're paying, like a Mark Richt, top dollar, top 5 coaching money in the nation, and you're going 8-5 consistently. Let's see, it was 9-3 last year. It was 8-5 the 2 years before that. You're getting a top 25 team. You're not getting a national championship contender, and that's what you're paying for. So that's the only reason I think that it's justified. But the key of the whole situation is, can you bring in the guy to replace him who's going to do better? And that's the big question mark that obviously we've been discussing.
Right. I don't think Urban Meyer's coming. I don't think Jim Harbaugh's coming. I don't think Nick Saban's coming. And it's just one of those deals to where, like I said, Tom Herman's a name, might be the next big guy. He really might. Looks really good what he's doing. Art Briles is floating around out there. There's a little bit of baggage with that, but I think some of that has been lifted off of him. So what do you do? And again, I go back, and it's one of those decisions that I tip myself to the players. There's 120 players and a lot of coaches who put a lot of time, a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears. Those coaches' wives, those players' families, as they sit in the living room and listen to these coaches, those 120 some odd players would have tipped my hand to say, we're going to wait till the end of the season to do this. And just because I think those kids deserve that. But at the end of the day, somebody with big money makes a decision, and they may be right. I don't agree with it, but then again, I don't have their money.
And Les Miles has plainly stated that he wants to continue to coach. So maybe USC is going to be open at the end of the year based on their rough start under Clay Helton, an unproven coach. Maybe Baylor's opened up because they've got currently an interim situation with Jim Grobe. Maybe he has to take a step back to a lower tier program at a North Carolina State or a Kentucky. Mark Stoops not doing well there. There could be a number of options there for Les Miles. All right, Jamie Hancock from First Nation.
John Calipari out on the sideline. If they can get Calipari on the sideline to recruit, they might be doing all right.
That could be it. That could be the combo right there. You get Les Miles, Calipari to recruit for him at a place like that, and you get him a game and clock manager. That's what I think he needs more than anything. If he gets that, he can rile up the troops and get those kids to play for him. They love him, but manage the clock in the last 2 minutes. All right, Jimmy Hancock.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's one of those things. They've had so much going on in that region. I find it just to be hairs at this point with the horror that they had in the last month down there, and it's so bad that we have to let go of a football coach and not focus on some of the things that they've had to do in that region. So, I hate to mess up the interview right there, but that was something that came to mind. There's a lot more going on in that region than getting unfortunate in a couple of football games.
Yeah, after the 3-hour game, we all go home and deal with family issues and situations, and those folks have been ravaged by tragedy in recent months, no doubt about that. Jamie Hancock from Preps Nation breaking down the LSU head coaching situation post Les Miles. As always, Jamie, appreciate the insight.
Thank you.